Almost every night, I stay up late playing video games in the living room of my apartment. It's a ritual for me to check the door before heading to bed, making sure it's locked. On one particular night, as I stood by the door, I felt an inexplicable urge to peek through the peephole. The hallway was usually quiet and empty, but this time, something caught my eye. The door handle of the apartment directly opposite mine was moving. It was subtle at first, a slow and deliberate turn, as if someone inside was trying to open it quietly. The handle would move, then stop for a minute, and then resume its eerie dance. I stood there, frozen, thousands of thoughts racing through my mind. Was someone trapped inside? Was my neighbor hiding a dark secret? I tried to decipher the movement, wondering if it was a desperate attempt to communicate through Morse code. The idea seemed absurd, yet I couldn't shake off the sense of dread that enveloped me. After about 10 minutes, the handle stopped moving. Shaken, I went to bed, hoping it was just a figment of my imagination. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I watched the door handle throughout the day, but nothing happened. As night fell, the handle began its slow, haunting movement once more. I decided to contact the building's reception, explaining the bizarre occurrence. The security team checked the footage, and they also couldn't believe what they saw. They reached out to the apartment's owner, asking if he was a sleepwalker or if his children might be playing tricks. But the owner's response chilled us to the bone. The apartment was vacant. He was in the process of selling it, and no one had lived there for months. The owner even came to the building, opening the apartment to show the security team, and it was really empty, no signs of life. For a while, the mysterious movements continued nightly, then suddenly stopped. The building returned to its usual quiet, and eventually, new tenants moved into the once vacant apartment. The eerie occurrences ceased, leaving behind an unsettling mystery. My 9-year-old daughter fell asleep on the couch while watching TV, like she often did. I went to bed, feeling safe knowing that the security camera in the living room was keeping an eye on things. We have it to check on our dogs while I'm at work and the kids are at school. The next morning, I noticed something was off. Papers were scattered on the floor, and the front door was slightly open. I couldn't remember if I had forgotten to close it or if my daughter had opened it in her sleep. I decided to check the camera footage to see what had happened during the night. What I saw on the footage made my blood run cold. At around 3 a.m., the front door slowly opened, and a strange man quietly walked in. He stood there, just staring at my sleeping daughter on the couch. He didn't move for what felt like forever, 47 minutes to be exact. He just stood there, watching her. Then, just as quietly, he left, leaving the door open behind him. My daughter never woke up during the whole thing. The thought of someone watching her for so long while she slept terrified me. I called the police and showed them the footage, but it was too dark to make out his face. They couldn't identify him. About a week later, I heard that a man had been arrested for burglary. He had broken into 2 other houses in our neighborhood that week. The description matched the man in my footage, but we can never be sure if it was really him. Even though he was caught, the memory of that night still haunts me. Every time I see my daughter sleeping on the couch, I can't shake the feeling that someone might be watching. The sense of safety in our home was shattered that night, and it's something I'll never forget. It was a quiet, chilly evening when Sarah returned home from work. She was relieved to finally be back in her cozy house, away from the day's stress. As she approached her front door, she fumbled for her keys. The soft chime of her doorbell camera signaled its activation, recording every movement on her doorstep. Sarah stepped inside, closing the door behind her with a firm click. She sighed, feeling the weight of the day lift off her shoulders. Little did she know, the real horror was just beginning. Minutes later, the doorbell camera captured a figure lurking at the edge of the frame. A man, his face obscured by a hood, crept up to Sarah's front door. He tried the handle, twisting it with a growing sense of urgency. The door, mercifully locked, didn't budge. He pounded on it, his frustration palpable through the camera's microphone. After a tense minute that felt like an eternity, he gave up and disappeared into the night. Sarah, oblivious to the danger she had narrowly escaped, continued with her evening routine. It wasn't until the next morning, when she reviewed the footage, that she saw the chilling scene unfold. Her heart raced as she watched the hooded figure's desperate attempts to break in. Terrified, Sarah contacted the police. They arrived promptly and examined the footage with grim expressions. One officer turned to Sarah, his face grave. "You're incredibly lucky. We've had reports of a rapist in the area matching this description. Your doorbell camera might have saved your life." Sarah's relief was overwhelming, but so was her fear. She couldn't shake the image of the man at her door, the seconds between safety and potential horror captured forever by a tiny camera lens. She vowed to always be vigilant, knowing how close she had come to becoming another statistic. It was a typical night in my suburban neighborhood. I often stayed up late watching TV, but it was around 3 a.m. when I heard the distant sounds of two men talking outside. My curiosity piqued. I checked my Ring doorbell camera to see what was going on. Two men, clearly drunk, were standing in front of my house. They were whispering, but the sound was low enough for the camera to pick up snippets of their conversation. At first, I couldn't make out much, but as I listened more intently, a chill ran down my spine. They were talking about something really disturbing. My mind raced as I pieced together their fragmented sentences. The taller one mentioned having 3 girls ready to be sold. The casual tone in his voice was terrifying. I felt a mix of horror and disbelief. Why were they discussing something so horrific right outside my home? I kept listening, my heart pounding louder with each word. The shorter guy seemed nervous, glancing around, as if he knew what they were talking about could get them into serious trouble. I felt a surge of fear and a strange sense of violation, knowing such dangerous people were so close. Then, without warning, the taller man turned towards my house and started walking up to my door. Panic seized me. He looked confident, almost as if he knew the place. I watched in frozen silence as he reached for the doorknob. My instincts kicked in, and I decided to speak through the doorbell. But as soon as the sound left my mouth, I realized the danger of alerting them that I had overheard their conversation. The man's face contorted in confusion and fear as he realized someone was watching him. He cursed under his breath, stumbled back, and hurried away with his friend. I was left staring at the screen, my heart racing, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Could it be that they were just drunk and the man mistook my house for his? Or was there a more sinister intention behind his actions? The uncertainty gnawed at me. I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that lingered long after they disappeared into the night. The next morning, I showed the footage to the police. They assured me they would investigate, but the encounter haunted me. Every time I thought about it, a shiver ran down my spine. What if I hadn't checked the camera? What if he had managed to get inside? The questions were endless, and the fear relentless. Even now, the memory of that night creeps me out, a reminder of how close danger can sometimes come to your doorstep. Jenny had always felt safe in her quiet suburban neighborhood. It was a place where everyone knew each other, and the most exciting event was the annual block party. But that all changed one chilly October night. Jenny had installed a Ring doorbell a few months earlier for added security. It was a decision she would soon regret. One evening, she received a notification on her phone. Motion detected at the front door. Curious, she opened the app to check the live feed. The screen flickered to life, revealing her dimly lit porch. At first, everything seemed normal, but then, she noticed something strange. A figure stood at the edge of the camera's view, just beyond the reach of the porch light. It was a man, dressed in dark, tattered clothing, his face obscured by a hood.
"Hello, can I help you?"
Jenny's voice trembled as she spoke into the microphone, hoping the man would leave. The figure didn't respond. Instead, he took a step closer, his face still hidden in shadow. Jenny's heart raced as she watched him move with an eerie, deliberate slowness. She could now see his eyes cold, vacant, and unblinking, staring directly into the camera. Suddenly, the feed cut out. Jenny's screen went black. Panic set in as she frantically tried to reconnect, but the app wouldn't load. She rushed to the window, peering out into the night. The porch was empty. The next morning, Jenny reviewed the footage, hoping to make sense of what she had seen. To her horror, the recording was corrupted. Only fragments of the encounter remained, glimpses of the figure and a distorted, static-filled audio track. Determined to find answers, Jenny contacted the police. They reviewed the footage and canvassed the neighborhood, but found no trace of the mysterious visitor. As days turned into weeks, Jenny couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Her nights were filled with restless sleep, haunted by the memory of those vacant eyes. One night, as she lay in bed, her phone buzzed with a new notification: motion detected at the front door. Fear gripped her as she opened the app. The screen showed her porch, empty once again. But in the corner of the frame, just barely visible, was a message scrawled in red paint on the wall.
I see you.
Jenny moved away shortly after. The man was never found, and the case remains unsolved. To this day, she avoids looking at doorbell cameras, fearing she might see those eyes staring back at her once more.